Can you believe it? We are finally back in the shop. It is after over a year of working on this last project. The plate is finally clear. Now, the shop could absolutely use a good cleaning, but it has been almost a year since I have had the docket clear that I can actually sit down and do some filming. And believe it or not, we're actually on the big cameras this time, not even on the phone camera, so we're going all out. And I think this is a great way. It's a beautiful spring day. There's a pandemic going on, but I've resolved myself to do my part and try to entertain you masses doing some pretty cool videos. And believe me guys, we've got some cool stuff. We're going to be sliding a little out of the blacksmith end of it and into some non-ferrous metals, which really is pretty awesome because I'm getting a chance to kind of come full circle, not only where I've been in my past, but also where the gentleman that taught me, Jay Riekert, was in his past. And we're going to be doing a lot of casting coming up. And we're doing really kind of a hybridized situation because you've got two basic flavors of casting. You've got sand casting, which most of you are familiar with. It's the large industrial scale type of casting. And then you have something known as investment casting. And this is usually what happens with jewelry. This is where you take a type of plaster that can get really, really super fine detail. And this is what you pour gold and silver into. This last project that I was working on, we actually had to make a bunch of keys, which really was, again, it was a really cool project, not profitable at all. It was a lot more of a favor, but it did the job. It gave us super high detail and allowed us to do a lot of keys at one time. Now, so we're going to be starting that process today, and I want to show you guys exactly what we're going to be working on. And I got to tell you guys, this is very, very important to me. When I was in Andersonville with Jay had two necklaces that he made out of silver. See, Jay actually worked in a lot of silver and stuff before he ever got into the blacksmithing. And one of the most important things that I have from Jay, this has gone with me to Forged in Fire. It was with me on Master of Arms. It's been with me to every important thing that I've ever done as a blacksmith. And that is this, which is Jay's Silver Eagle. Jay made this guy. If you actually look on the back, you can see Jay's stamp. It's Jay Riekert. And I don't know where Jay stole it from, but Jay actually had a set of sterling stamps. I wish I could have gotten them. But he actually had some jeweler stamps. They actually marked it as sterling silver. I doubt it's complete sterling silver, but I don't know where Jay got them. But anyway, but he also made his chain. But one of the things I've always gritted my teeth about, this thing's terribly important to me. And I always wanted to take it with me to important places, but I've always been worried about losing it because, again, you know, it's probably the most important artifact I have from Jay. But what we're going to do is we're actually going to take this girl and we are going to make a rubber mold of this original piece that Jay did so that I can copy it and pour it in a couple of different precious metals. So I have a couple of backups. So this is an excellent time to take you guys through the lost wax process, and we're going to be using some pretty high-end stuff. This is one of those situations I have to tell you, it's very difficult to half-ass. In fact, this is going to be one of those situations where even though there are several things that we have put together, there is no half-assery in this. These are either done correctly or you don't do it at all. So, but guys, let's go ahead and dive into it. Again, excited to be back, and I hope you enjoy this series. And here we are with part one, making a rubber mold. All right, guys, everything starts off with this guy right here. This is an aluminum mold frame. We're going to use this in conjunction with a type of press you guys get to see here in a bit. And the real heart of this operation is this stuff right here. This is actually rubber. It's sandwiched between two pieces of wax paper here. And what will happen is we actually have to cut this rubber out so that it fits down in our frame. And basically our jewelry piece will fit on a layer of this, and we'll stack it in. And what will happen is that this rubber right here, and I say this is rubber, this is really gooey stuff. This is not like your regular rubber. You can see that it's actually gooey. It has not been vulcanized, so we're basically going to take this raw rubber and we'll put our piece in here, and then we'll put it in a press that will both put a little pressure on top of this guy, and it will also cook it, therefore vulcanizing it, basically making it like tire rubber. So actually this blue pad right here is an entire sheet. It's an 1/8 of an inch thick. This stuff is a 1/4 of an inch thick. And so what I've got to do first is, I've got to lay out, actually got to get a couple other things here. We've got actually some brass sprues here. I'll tell you about those in a minute. Got these little guys right here. That's for your sprue. And then we've also got some, what they call mold registers. These little brass caps right here. These are very, very handy. All right, so let's start off. Now, it makes everything a whole lot easier if you can do this in one piece. Most of the time, this is big enough to contain most jewelry size molds. However, what we're doing here, this is a really, really big mold. So what I end up doing is I mark it out, and I've actually got a piece of cardboard here. I'm going to cut this on. This is some high-tech cardboard. Put this guy right here, and we'll cut this guy out. Okay. Now, I was telling you about how gooey this stuff is. Let me take the paper off this. This is natural rubber, and you can see it's gooey just like Play-Doh. So I'll take that, put that out of the way, and that should be our first piece. I'll make sure we fit in here. You really want this to kind of fit in nice and tight. As you can see, we got a little bit of a strip in here we're going to have to do, which is no problem. I'll actually set this in here and mark it out as well. Now, the thickness of my mold is right at 3/4 of an inch. So if I use 2 full thickness pieces of 1/4 inch for both the bottom and the top, and then I've got a split of 1/8 of inch stuff, that will give me the size that I need. Okay. Now the only aggravation is just when they mill those molds, they don't put square corners in there, so you have to kind of have to do all this crapola. All right, so there's one piece. I'll set that to the side, and we're going to do one more of those. That'll be our bottom. This piece right here will be our top. Again, trying to be judicious with this bad boy. Now normally I'd be editing all this stuff out. You guys wouldn't have to see this, but there's a playing on, so we got time, right? We got plenty of time. And I'm going to copy this guy right here as far as the length goes, or the width rather. Okay, that should give me a top and a bottom. And then we're going to go down to our 1/8 of an inch mat here and take some chunks there. Like I said, this stuff is so gooey that you can actually kind of glue it together just like that and make a whole piece. So here's our 2 there. Set this to the side. So I had to take a little bit of an intermission because I ran into a bit of a problem. So the 1/8 of an inch stuff I had ordered had apparently gotten some heat to it in shipping over here, and it was bad. So I had to make myself some 1/8 of an inch pieces. Now this stuff here is 1/4 of an inch, and what I do is I take a little bit of this and put some between some wax paper and put it in the press to make some fresh 1/8 of an inch. So we're good to go here. So all I gotta do is cut these guys out. Our custom mushed mold rubber here. Okay, that ought to have done the job. You're being a liar. Being a liar here. There we go. Okay. Out of the way, and let's get one more. Okay, and it looks like we are just about ready to go here. Now the first thing we're going to do, I'm going to take a little bit of tin foil. This is going to go down nice and flat right here. This will form the base. This will keep it from sticking to everything. And we're going to start with one of our 1/4 inch pieces here. Take the paper off of it. And we're going to pack it down in here. Get in there. Okay, there we go, and let's take our paper off. That's a 1/4 inch down, and now what we want to do is we want to put an 1/8 of an inch piece down, and this creates a midline in here. So much nicer when everything fits. Paper comes up. So now we've got this guy halfway filled. And now we've got a little hole right on this side. You can see that. And that is for this guy right here. This is what creates the injection port, or the sprue, where wax is going to be shot into this to make our mold. So what I'll do is this goes in here like so. Now, let me do a little bit of a disclaimer here. Whereas I've had some experience doing this stuff, I am by no means a professional. So if you are a professional and you are screaming at me for doing something wrong, all of my butt is what you can kiss. I am not an expert in this. However, I've made it work before. It's been halfway decent. So cut a brother some slack. Come on, Joker. All right, there is our sprue, and now we have our eagle here. And you got to figure out exactly where this is going to connect, because that's going to be a point that you have to clean up. And so what I'm probably going to do is, I really don't want to. Okay guys, so what we've got here is we've got our sprue in place, and I've got my eagle here. And what I'm going to want to do is I'm going to pop this guy right in here. Make sure that my sprue is touching this. Make sure this is seated very nicely. And so what will happen now is this guy will form the actual channel that we'll actually shoot the wax into. And so to complete the other side of this, we will take our other piece of 1/8 of an inch. Now, one of the things that I do here, and there's a couple different ways you can do this. You can just make this a complete solid block of rubber and then simply cut it loose. One method though that the gentleman that taught me always liked to use was using a mold separation cream and these little registers. Now what these guys do is they allow you to line up everything. So when this thing comes apart, this guarantees the fit. But in order to kind of help have this thing separate, we're going to use a particular type of cream that prevents the rubber, or helps prevent the rubber from sticking. This little stuff right here. So normally what I do is I just use this as an aid. I don't go all the way up to the piece. I leave that piece in place, and I leave about 1/4 of an inch all the way around it, just so that the mold cream doesn't affect it. But all around the registers I paint it. And then I'll come back in and kind of remove any excess, just so I've got a good even coat. Because this guy is going to be kind of under pressure. As it's squeezed and the rubber heats up, it's going to expand a little bit, so you don't want any excess. Okay, so now we've got that. We are ready to put our 1/8 of an inch other piece on top of here. So this should lay in just like that. And now we'll come back over with our last piece. Now, because what should happen is there should be a little bit too much rubber in here, especially when it heats up. So when we put this in our press, nope, traffic going by. When we put this in our press, it should fill out any of the gaps, and it will probably squirt a little bit out the sides here, which is just fine, is what we want it to do. I will take another piece of tin foil right here and pop this over here. What this does is this keeps it sticking from the press, or to the press that we're going to use. Okay, and there we go. There's our mold form, all done up and looking good. And now it's time to go look at a new piece of equipment and tell you guys how it's going to work. Guys, this is a vulcanizing press, and I've told you a couple of times that, you know, there's sometimes that you just can't really skimp on equipment, that sometimes you gotta buy what's out there. And that's really the case with this. As much stuff as I fabricate and put together, hard to put one of these together efficiently, effectively, or more importantly, cost effectively. What this guy is, again, it's just almost an H-frame press. However, the big thing about it is that in these aluminum face blocks are actually elements. So this actually heats up, and that's what's the important part of all this. So what's going to happen is that we're going to take our mold here. It will go in there, and we will come down and clamp this into place. These are parallel. It's good and tight. Right there, we're good to go. And now the super important thing is that we can turn this guy on, and we've got it set. It should be for 350. There we go. And for this particular type of rubber, the instructions state vulcanize at 350 degrees for 15 minutes per quarter-inch section. So that means that 45 minutes at 350 degrees will actually cook this guy and get it ready. So I've got everything set. I'll set my timer and go make a glass of tea and have a biscuit, and we'll be back and check out our mold. All right, it's been 45 minutes, and let's get it loose. Now, this thing is 350 degrees, so that means it's damn hot. But you guys can see we've got a little bit of little dangler there, looking rough. And what we're going to do is we're going to give this a little bit of time to cool. Then we'll pop it out and actually go about the business of cutting this guy open. So let me set this down, let it cool, give us about 10-15 minutos, and then we'll be back at it. Be careful, see if we can't peel this tinfoil off. I've yet to do one of these. I've been able to get the tinfoil off in one piece. It's become an OCD obsession. Good enough government work. Hand that thing's hot. Come on, bastard. All right, we'll be back in a minute. See ya. Our piece is now cooled, and now we have to get this joker out of the frame here, and that's usually a little easier said than done, but I was able to get my piece out here, so it should be a relatively easy process. I think this is the easiest I've ever had one come out. And here's the block. Of course, there's the dangler. And sad to say, but the dangler's got to go. So, one snip, and we are kosher. This piece comes off here. And this piece comes off here. Now, getting this joker open is always the deal. Now, normally, if you did not have that separation line, there's a sequence in which you actually go through with your knife and you cut. You don't cut straight lines, you end up actually cutting jagged lines. That helps it register. That takes the place of those little pins we put in there. But hopefully, with our separating powder, or that cream, what should happen, I've just got a little sharp piece of metal here. I should be able to take this guy, and I should find a seam, and I should be able to start separating it. Now I found that there is nothing graceful about this process or easy about this process. Once this, this stuff goes from gooey to full on serious. So the other issue is of course, you can see down in there where it's solid. That's where the cream stopped, and that's where you have to come in with your blade and actually cut that down to the piece itself. And this is a slow process. Now, there's a couple different techniques you can use to do this a little bit better. Again, I'm not a professional at this by any means. You can see right there, there's our little brass cup. And what happens, if you look right there, you can actually see what happens. We'll clip this open. We'll actually take our blade and open this up, and this is actually where we'll inject the wax, so it makes a nice little neat little cone. Get that cleaned up in a minute. Keep cutting this back. Now, the professionals make this look so easy. I kind of felt like a monkey humping a football every time that I've done this. I've probably been about as effective. Okay. And you can see a little piece of our metal that's in there. And it seemed like my cream took right here, so I'm gonna, there it goes. And now you got that halfway open, I can get down in here. Now I've seen folks use actual clamps to do this with. This is a little awkward because I'm having to put so much force on this. And of course, in order for the camera to see it properly, I'm kind of having to do it at a weird angle. But you can see she is slowly starting to emerge. And the thing that always scares me is the fact that I've got basically a razor blade here. And I'm having to apply a lot of force, so I'm just waiting for the day that I slip and lose a finger. You can see she's opening up. Go ahead and see if I can't cut loose the rest of this right here. Okay, and again, this is a slow, tedious process. You don't want to make a bunch of bad cuts in here, because if you end up really sawing on this thing, it usually makes for a bad mold. A little bit more coming out here. I'm trying to get this where you guys can see it. Good news is this rubber is really tough, and so it's really difficult to actually tear it up. Like we're getting close here. Actually, there's our piece, and I'll bring it out in just a second. Get the rest of this cleaned up here. And just a little bit more. Up, and ba-blam. Right on the floor where it needs to go. Okay. So let's take a look. You can see now we have these two halves here. And if we go ahead and prise this out, oop, I forgot I got these pieces on the back side here. I got to cut them out. And again, this rubber is very flexible. There's one. Ooh, that joker's still hot. There's two. And she ought to come out. And this stuff can get such detail if you can't see, you can actually see Jay's mark even in this. So that's actually should transfer in the wax. Now the only thing that I did, I didn't do rather, is I should have cleaned this piece a little more thoroughly. I've got a little bit of blackening right there. I don't think that's going to hurt us. But it would have been much better if I had cleaned this boy all the way up. But now you can see what's happened is you got two halves. Those little brass pieces act as registers, so this piece goes back together. Now you inject your wax into here. The only other thing I've got to do, now if you notice that what happened is normally that brass rod was all the way down, but the pressure shot that rod out. So what I'm going to need to do is actually come in with my knife, and I'm going to need to actually cut a channel to there that will be the sprue, and then I'll make a couple of vents out this other side. So let's see if I can do this right here. Again, having to show off for the camera. Cut in. One. Now I'll actually do this on both sides. So this will be half the sprue. And then we cut this guy loose. And there's our sprue channel. And I'll do the same thing on this side right over here. Yeah, this is always a pain in the butt doing it for the camera. And that'll do it. That'll do it pretty well. I'm gonna cut it just a little bit more. Clean it up. Oh, you know what? I actually bought a linoleum tool here for actually scooping these sprues. I thought it would be a brilliant idea. We're gonna test that out real quick. This is known as a linoleum cutter. Let's see if this will give me any help here. Yeah, it's not doing too bad. Could be sharper. Could definitely be sharper. Could be blacksmith sharp. It really needs to be more sharp. But anyway, you guys get the idea. So what we have here is our mold now. And I'll end up actually coming in here and cutting a couple of vents just let the wax and air and everything else come out, just so that we get to all the right spaces. And that ought to be the deal. We're going to get the wax pot set up, and that will be for the part 2 of this video. And there you have it, guys, our 2-part vulcanized rubber mold. Now again, I apologize to all you professionals out there who are probably screaming at the screen right now on how I didn't do it correctly. I absolutely agree with you, and I'm muddling through, but hey, we've got ourselves a mold, and it ought to be able to shoot us a good wax. Guys, you know, this is an industry standard type deal. When I first started working in jewelry way back in the early 2000s, you know, the place that I worked used molds just like this. This is the same process that any industry is going to use. So this is how it's done. And again, and it cannot be done cheaply. There's some equipment that you have to have. For example, between the press and the materials, you're going to spend the better part of $1,000 just to get to this point. So it is not for the faint of heart or the weak of pocketbook. But at any rate, it is awesome to watch. And guys, that's going to do it for part 1. Part 2 will actually be shooting the wax and preparing it to go into our plaster. Again, so good to be back into the shop, so good to be filming for you guys again. And you know, it's kind of a new day. Hopefully I'm going to have the opportunity to spend a lot more time here on YouTube, and with the shut-in, I know you guys want the content and I need the money. So please like and subscribe. Make sure and check out our Patreon. Every little bit dollar helps these days. But you know, outside of that, you guys stay safe, buckle down, don't sneeze on anybody, don't get sneezed on, and you guys be good. And I will see you for part 2 of casting in bronze. See you guys later.